to look at Syria, clearly still the focus for the international press.
Yes, absolutely. It's on front pages all around the world. Let's have a look at this one from the Lebanese paper L'Orient Le Jour. The Arab and Western ambassadors are all trying to save themselves, is that headline, after, of course, a large number of countries recalled their ambassadors from Damascus yesterday. That editorial on the front page is again talking about Russia and about Lavrov's visit. They accuse Russia of nostalgia for the Cold War era and says that Putin is trying to create a Russian power bloc that's as powerful as it was in that era, trying to unite himself with China, Iran, Syria, to create a power bloc that could work as a counterweight to the West, but that they say he's being complicit in murder and massacres while doing so. That sort of juxtaposition between what's going on in the streets of Syria and what's going on diplomatically is also on the front page of The Guardian. Their headline is Tale of Two Cities, a quick allusion there to Charles Dickens, whose 200th anniversary it is today. But their two cities on that front page are Damascus on the left. You've got protesters there, pro-regime protesters, waving Russian flags at Lavrov's diplomatic convoy, and on the other hand, tanks in the streets of Homs. Journalists on that paper have been speaking to people in Homs via phone and Skype who say that they're under siege, that all the streets have been blocked by tanks, that there are people starving to death. One of the activists that the journalist speaks to says that he accuses Assad of trying to carry out a genocide. Now, inside the paper, in their analysis, they look at what the West can now do now that the UN route is, if you like, blocked. They talk about covertly supplying the Syrian opposition with weapons. They say Qatar and Saudi Arabia are already doing that, and Washington may be considering, Barack Obama may be considering signing a secret declaration to do exactly that. But they say there's a number of problems there for Obama. Firstly, that would probably be leaked very quickly, which would then become dynamite, as they put it, if it were, and the US administration also wants to keep an Arab face on for any foreign intervention in Syria. They think that would play better with the Arab street.
Now, we've talked a great deal ever since that double veto over the weekend, Elena, about Russia's veto. But of course, China vetoed the resolution as well. We haven't heard as much about it, though.
No, they seem to have had rather less international media criticism, don't they? But there's a few papers talking about that today. There's a rather strong cartoon in the Times, which has Bashar al-Assad, Vladimir Putin, Hu Jintao doing synchronised swimming in a sea of blood there. And the New York Times editorial is looking at why Beijing supports Moscow. They say it's actually got nothing to do with Syria, really. They're just trying to keep Russian support on board in case Beijing ever needs it for a UN resolution about a country that China does care about, like Burma, or a country where China has lots of investments. They say China and Russia have agreed to defend one another, support one another in these kinds of UN resolutions, so they're not left isolated. But China doesn't actually care much, they think, about Syria itself. This approach also, according to Le Monde, has gone down rather badly with some people in China. They quote a number of Chinese bloggers on the internet who are complaining about their government and apologising to the Syrian people in the name of China. Le Monde says that from once being very nationalistic quite a short time ago, there's been a turnaround in Chinese public opinion, and now this kind of foreign policy from the part of the government is less and less popular in China itself.
Now, there's been a lot of talk, of course, in the last few days, Elena, about this growing spat between Argentina and Britain, in particular the Argentinian president's decision to lodge a formal complaint with the United Nations. How has the spat been seen on both sides, by the British and by the Argentinian press?
Well, let's look first at the Times, fairly conservative paper. They say, as you might expect, that Christina Kirchner is talking rubbish, that the extra warships that have been sent to the Falklands area were planned a long time in advance. They're nothing to do with the rising tension. Over at the British Huffington Post also, they look at how far the Argentinian government has gone in sort of propaganda effort over this. They've even renamed the Argentinian Football League the Belgrano League in commemoration of a warship that was sunk by the British 30 years ago. And even in Argentina, where until fairly recently it was taboo to say that the Falklands might actually not be Argentinian, there's a reporter for the paper Clarín who's gone to the Falklands themselves and reports back that all the people she met there said they didn't want to be Argentinian. There's quite rude things to say about Argentina that we can't repeat, and that they wanted Christina Kirchner to just leave them alone. So even the Argentinian press are starting to realise now what was once taboo, that they may not be Argentinian after all.
Finally, Elena, we're going to have a look at a story from California, quite an odd story about the rights of killer whales.
Very briefly, this is from The Times. The animal activist group PETA have brought a case against SeaWorld in California. They say they're breaking the US Constitution because they're enslaving people, but it's not actually people that they're enslaving, it's killer whales. They say being kept in cages and being made to perform every day is slavery, that it's against the 14th Amendment, and that they say the US Constitution isn't species specific, so there's no reason why it shouldn't protect killer whales as well.
Fascinating story. We'll see how the plaintiffs are able or not to make their voice heard. Elena Casas, thanks very much indeed for all of that. Time now for a look at the very latest in